There's no court in the world that will let you blame the AI if something goes wrong. These are the three simultaneous change curves: the company level change, the functional change, and the individual change. And with each of those change curves, there's a three-part process. The first part is the plunge. And the plunge is what happens when people are called to action, called to change, the valley of dramatic tensions. This is where resistance is highest, to stage 3, which is emergence. In emergence, we start to see glimmers of success and hope and repeatability.
How to bring that trust between AI and the workforce, because sometimes people don't adopt AI just because, oh, it's going to replace me someday. I'm giving it all the knowledge I am doing.
When we as humans most need to be adaptable and to lean into change, a lot of employees fear that if they lean into an AI change, they're just replacing themselves. They're training their replacement. Definitely, jobs will go away because of AI. That's a 100% statement of fact. It's already happening. Somebody will replace you in your job if they know how to use AI and you don't.
From launching billion-dollar categories at Microsoft, Cisco, and Juniper Networks to being named one of the 50 most powerful women in tech, Christine Heckart has spent 30 years defining the cutting edge. Today, as the founder and CEO of Xapa, she's pioneering a new era where human-centered leadership and emotional intelligence are the ultimate competitive advantages in an AI-driven world. Join us as we discuss how to navigate radical change and ground your career in purpose while the world transforms around you.
Name your fear, name your problem, name your solution, but be explicit about it, because that's something that builds your own individual credibility. And as a leader, it's more likely that your team is going to come with you on the ride when you're able to build that kind of trust and show that kind of vulnerability.
You're so human-focused, people first. Have you ever fired anybody? Christine, welcome. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
I'm looking at your bio. You have a huge trail of large brands, big organizations, all from executive authority standpoint. First of all, this is very impressive. Second, I know from the mid-management perspective that the responsibility on the top is very tough to keep the ship sailing, and also the business momentum continue to go. Whenever leadership joins and the news media, brand gets questioned. Marketing strategy gets questioned too. Employees get scared too for the reorg and everything. And hiring gets frozen. It's a tough situation both for leaders to prove their existence and their success quickly because of the pressure from board, and also to make sure employees are good. We are not going to lose the good talent also, because it happens. Like when layoffs happen, it does not happen typically to every single person's check, right? It is just happen at bulk, and some good talent get lost too. How you did this kind of a change management, and your trail shows a lot of successes on this path. How did you nail it, and where do you think execs are making mistakes through this change?
I 100% agree with you that there is an enormous amount of change happening that's creating fear. And there's something called the Adaptability Paradox. And what it basically says is when we as humans most need to be adaptable and to lean into change, we're least likely to do it because we end up being paralyzed with fear. And especially around AI right now. And because there have been so many layoffs blamed on AI, even if that wasn't really the underlying reason for the layoff, a lot of employees fear that if they lean into an AI change, they're just replacing themselves. They're training their replacement. And so that creates resistance to change. And as you
Yes.
say, as leaders, our job is to lead people through change to the other side. So I think one thing we can do and I'm happy to dig into it here, is look at the top reasons why change fails and the three simultaneous change curves that are happening right now. So it's not just one change curve that's happening,
Yep.
it's three. That complicates things enormously. But if we break down the change curve into the three phases of change, then as leaders, we can bring out the right tools at the right time to
Right.
adjust where our teams are in that change process.
How about transparency here? You said like there are multiple changes happen at the time, but leaders typically, at least like from my experience, what I have seen is first of all, the brand strategy gets changed quickly because we brought new leadership to change how customers perceive us. We want to change our perception because we are going through a lot of transformations. We are changing our portfolios and offerings, and team gets changed too. So budgets and all that. So those multiple changes, how can leaders make sure good talent is retained and reused? Transparency is there. That is one part. And at the same time, higher authorities like board is also in confidence that like strategy is going to the right direction. Again,
So, like you said, there's a lot of change that's happening all at once. And some of that change is at the corporate level.
hmm,
What is the company's strategy? With AI, in many industries, AI creates an existential threat to companies. If they're not able to adapt to the change, they may not have a business model anymore. So that creates enormous pressure and threat at the top of the company to change the company's strategy, the company's products, the company's messaging and brand positioning. So that's one massive change curve that's happening. That's kind of the meta change curve that's
yeah,
happening in most companies. But underneath that is the departmental level change curve, because whether the strategy at the company is changing or not, each of the functions are being reinvented because of AI. So, how we do marketing is changing, how we build products is changing, how we sell, how we go about the
yeah,
finance and the analysis and the
yeah,
justification. So, each of these departments is being reinvented. So, that means if I'm a department leader at the very top or mid manager, I've got this massive corporate change happening,
yeah,
and my function is being changed. So, we're having to reinvent the function,
yeah,
and each individual human, regardless of what level in the company they're at, each individual human is going through their own change curve
yeah,
because they realize that the new strategy, the new way the function is being done, and AI tools are changing the way their job gets done. And whether they even have a job, that's their fear, is at the end of this, will I have a job or will I go through all this change and then I'll be out on the street? So these are the three simultaneous change curves: the company level change, the functional change, and the individual change. And with each of those change curves, there's a three-part process. And the reason why I bring this up is for each individual, they have to somehow make it through all three change curves to
yeah,
get to the other side.
yes,
So, where I always start is with the individual, because if the individual isn't willing to come along on the ride, if they're not willing to go through the change, they resist. That's the adaptability paradox.
correct.
They are afraid, they don't understand what's happening, they're worried that their livelihood is being impacted, and therefore they will resist the change. If enough people resist the change, then those other two change curves become irrelevant. We
Mhm.
can't change the company and we can't change the department if
Yeah,
the people aren't leaning into the change. We should probably talk about each phase of the change curve, because as leaders, if we help our people through each phase of that change curve for each of those three changes that are happening, we will get the people through the change and our companies and our functions will be successful.
Make them part of the change.
That's a big part of it. So you just named one of the fatal flaws and one of the things that leaders can do differently, which is to involve the individual in shaping the path.
And it's both ways. Sometimes, like, same leadership tries to make changes within the organization, then just don't just push it, be part of the change.
Right.
Yeah, it's
Exactly.
both ways. Yeah, that's
Exactly.
right. You said it right. I mean, I will also cite report here, like PwC published, 85% of execs feels pressure from board to show AI progress. You touched AI, and that's exactly the same thing. There is a pressure to implement AI, even when internal readiness is unclear. So this is a big change, while it is becoming like operating system for every business right now. Even like our daily lives are influenced by AI right now.
Old playbooks for change don't work,
Yeah.
particularly in this moment where change is happening so rapidly and there is so much that's unclear. So the old trickle down playbooks where leaders come up with the strategy and they announce it and it cascades through the organization, those playbooks don't work for this moment. So we have new playbooks that have to be executed, and we really have to learn to activate all employees from the ground up and the edges in. We can't assume that old trickle-down methodologies will be effective.
How to get support from teams in this case? Like, we want to involve them, but they want to be involved as well.
So let's just break down the three parts to the change curve. The first part is the plunge.
Okay.
And the plunge is what happens when people are called to action, called to change. The leaders say there's a new strategy or we've got to reinvent the function. And people didn't ask for this. Like, I
Yeah.
feel some guilt. It's like here we are in Silicon Valley, and a small number of very genius people unleash this whole new technology on the world, and it starts to change everything, and people are being impacted, and jobs are being lost.
Yeah.
People didn't ask for this.
Yeah.
It's happening. It feels like it's happening to them, and they feel out of control. That's the plunge. So the first thing that we can do as leaders is we can make sure that we recognize the plunge as a distinct part of the transformation process. It's normal,
Mhm.
and we can help each person deal with it. So the way we at Zappa teach leaders to manage through the plunge is by being really explicit about what do we know about the change?
Yeah,
And
that's
by the way,
important.
we don't know. There's a lot we don't know. We might know that the strategy needs to change, but we don't even know how yet. So, what do we know? Explicitly, what needs to be left behind? Do we know yet what's not working in the old way? And we know we have to walk away from that.
Yeah.
And we need to be explicit about that. And when we're explicit about that, the very first thing we have to do is we have to celebrate and honor what's being left behind because people will cling to that.
Mhm.
And if they're so busy clinging to the past, they don't have a free arm to go to the next thing.
True.
So the first thing we have to do is say, okay, we're going to be explicit. These things we're leaving behind, and we recognize that they're important to you. Grieve them. We can do a time capsule for our employees. We can say, write down everything that you cherish about where we've been and
Okay.
about what we're explicitly leaving behind. Talk about it, process it, get it all out. And then at some point, we have a time to honor the past and to grieve for it, to capture it, to tell our story. When I work with teams, I use storytelling. So everybody, let's get together, tell our story. Where have we been? What was hard about it? What was great about it? What did you love? What do we want to honor, cherish, celebrate? But then at some point, you put it in your time capsule and you explicitly say, and we're leaving that behind. Now, we also have to identify in the plunge what from the past do we need to bring into the future? Because certain things you don't want to change. So let's be explicit about that. And then let's say what we don't know yet. So if we can do those three things on the plunge, when we're done plunging, we end up in phase two, which is the valley of dramatic tensions. So now we got everybody down here in the valley of dramatic tensions. So as leaders, now we have to deal with stage two.
Two.
So what happens in the valley of dramatic tensions? This is where resistance is highest. And you just pointed out something that can really help leaders get people through the change. And it is to involve the team in shaping the path.
Correct.
The leaders don't have all the answers, especially in the AI era. So much about the change that's happening now is uncertainty and it's experimentation. We all have to learn together.
Yeah.
So, one thing we can do as leadership is we can involve everybody in shaping the path. Let's say what we don't know. Let's create explicit calls to action and explicit forums for experimentation. And then I, as the leader, need to model. So we didn't really talk about the top reasons why change fails, but let's hit it quickly because it's important for this phase of the change curve. The reason why change stalls down here in the valley is because leaders don't model the change, employees aren't involved in shaping the path, and people can't answer the question, what's in it for me?
You're right.
And this is the
That's very on
emotional
point.
resonance, right? We can give all the logic in the world. That's the rider on the elephant, the logical brain.
Yeah.
But it's not the logical brain that resists change. It's the emotional heart. It's the amygdala that hijacks the logical brain and resists the change.
Yeah.
So what we can do is we can involve people in shaping the path so that they're helping to come up with the answers. And we can make sure that every employee is encouraged to figure out the answer to the question, what's in it for me? And the answer to this question is not department is going to be more efficient or that the company is going to be more successful or probably even that maybe I'll have a job at the end of this, as much as that's a good motivator. We have to help people get personal and say, I may have a chance to learn something new. And whatever I learn is going to help me in my next job. If my next job is here, it's going to help me. If my next job is somewhere else, what I'm learning is going to make me more valuable. Or they might say, um, there's a lot of work that I don't enjoy. Like 50% of my job is draining to me. It's not what I'm great at. I don't like doing it. Great. Maybe this change, especially with AI, maybe this change will help me get rid of, automate what I don't enjoy doing so I can really lean into the stuff I'm great at and I
You
love and it gives me energy. Maybe it gets me home at night and I get a chance to have dinner with my kids or I get more time to start the hobby or write the book but if it's not personal, if they don't see a personal benefit to them in their career, them in their life, them in their family, they will resist the change. And if they resist the change, your change will not be successful. So it's really important that people answer this question down in the valley. And if we can do that, if we can involve them in shaping the path, learn from each other. If the leaders get involved and model, they're vulnerable also. If everybody answers the question, why do I want to make, I know it's going to be hard. It's going to be messy. There's going to be tension. But if I stick with it and we get through the other side, there's something valuable for me. If we can do those three things, then we have a chance of getting to stage three or phase three, which is emergence. And in emergence, we start to see glimmers of success and hope and repeatability. And then we have something that can be followed, and everybody can get out to the other side. And then we start all over again. The
Yes.
changes happen, we can declare success, and then we can move on to the next phase in our company. Name your fear, name your problem, Name your solution if you have one, but be explicit about it because that's something that builds your own individual credibility. And as a leader, it's more likely that your team is going to come with you on the ride when you're able to build that kind of trust and show that kind of vulnerability.
What is the scale that how progress is being measured on human personality development on the leadership side?
So there's lots of measurements that we need to be putting in place right now because the change is so multifaceted. So, of course, as leaders, we need to understand the business metrics. At the individual level, some of the skills are true AI skills. We need to teach them what prompt engineering is, how to write a good prompt, how to apply AI for their jobs. We need to make them literate in the basic tools and how to use it in the flow of their work.
How to bring that trust between AI and the workforce in this case? Because sometimes people don't adopt AI just because, oh, it's going to replace me someday. I'm giving it all the knowledge I am doing.
At some point, businesses will figure out where and how to make AI be a productivity tool for their company. And some of that will include replacing tasks, and in some cases, maybe even whole jobs with AI. Definitely, jobs will go away because of AI. That's a 100% statement of fact. It's already happening. Somebody will replace you in your job, whatever your job ends up, if they know how to use AI and you don't.
You covered a lot here and all valuable things. I totally admire you saying is that, like, what is there for me? If there is none, create one.
Right.
Create
Every
one,
person has to figure it out.
right? Of course, like transformations bring opportunities as well. Just identify what's there for you. If none, create one and be part of the change. And that's the way to success.
But as leaders, we have all this pressure to get through the change quickly. And we're leading hundreds, thousands of people. And when I was at Microsoft, I went through this. I inherited a team that was grieving because their strategy had failed. The future was very uncertain. And I had to lead them through a change, and we didn't even know what the other side was going to look like. All we knew was the current business was a big failure. And people had moved to Seattle. So we really had, and I said, like, there's thousands of people. I don't have time to make sure every person can answer this question. And my change management coach looked at me and said, if you don't, your change will fail. So you have
That's a
to
big
make
one.
the time. And I was in my mid-30s. I'd never led something that complex from a change before, but that's where I started. And we spent time making sure that every person could think and talk about how will they benefit through this process. We didn't even know the endpoint yet. So a lot of how they were going to benefit was they're going to have a chance to figure it out. They're going to have a chance to learn something new. They're exhausted by the failure. They want a win. Whatever it is for each person as leaders, if we don't insist that people figure out their own personal answer to that, share it with others, make sure that it's authentic, too many of our people will resist the change and we will fail.
This is so much to digest, but this is great, great insight. On the other side, uh, building, while this is chaos within the organization, and leaders also have to answer the board, and you are on the board side as well, like you take care of that portion. While all that chaos is happening internally, how to still keep the confidence higher in the boardroom that it will pass, it is going good, how to measure?
Well, those are all different things. Um, so, I'm very lucky to be part of a public board that has radical transparency. And the CEO, Rajesh Vashist, is absolutely amazing in the way he, as the leader of the company, works with the board to give transparency to what's happening. And that includes not saying everything's going to be okay when he doesn't know. So, what we get as a board is we get full information on what's working clearly, what's clearly not working and needs to be fixed, and then what's all the messy stuff in the middle that we're still unclear about. And what do we do about it? And so, what I love about this example is this is happening at the top of the company and the board. And that's
Right.
probably one of the hardest places for radical transparency to live because so many CEOs try to manage their boards very closely. But it's a lesson for all of us as leaders because when we are willing to lean into radical transparency, radical clarity, what's working, what's not working, vulnerability to say, I don't always know the answer, but I'm willing to figure it out. When we as leaders are willing to lean into that, we get credibility from the people above us. If it's the CEO, he gets so much credibility with the board because of that radical transparency. But that's true if I'm a direct report to the CEO, if I'm a director, if I'm a mid level manager, or even if I'm an individual contributor. Where we lose credibility is where we pretend that we have answers when we don't, that we have competency when we don't. One of the things that Zappa does is it teaches every employee about the skills they need to be successful. In general, in an AI driven world, but what are the skills I need? And the ability to build trust with people is a critical skill. And there's 4 elements to trust. I won't go into it, but one of those elements is vulnerability. My willingness to say when I don't know, my willingness to say when I have messed up or I have been incomplete in my ability to achieve something, but also my ability to say when I'm confident, when I do have an answer. So, one of the things we teach people is lean into that radical transparency, including that critical piece of trust around vulnerability, and name your fear, name your problem, name your solution if you have one, but be explicit about it because that's something that builds your own individual credibility. And as a leader, it's more likely that your team is going to come with you on the ride when you're able to build that kind of trust and show that kind of vulnerability.
Employee development with AI is interesting, but at the same time, employees, in fact, the whole workforce, the operational workforce, typically um, is living in a fear against AI that a lot of jobs will be removed from the organization and from the industry even. And there are companies who have made some decisions also already that have some names, Duolingo and Spotify. They clearly have stated that they're not going to hire any person, any role, if that can be done with AI. Salesforce is replacing their support staff to AI agents. IBM have HR roles to AI agents. Even HR Dive has posted an article 37% of companies expect to have replaced jobs with AI by the end of 2026. It's huge. We're already in 2026. You're saying like AI driven employee development skills, leadership development skills. Where is the intersection here so that employees are safe? They feel safe with AI. It is not seen as a replacement, but as a complement uh, authority or feature on their role. So it can help them keep up. When internet was here, similar kind of fear was there as well. Like 5 minutes of images to see, go through that modem quickie sound, and then like websites were never loading, half an hour to send an email, and then again internet was not for me at that point, but now cannot live without it. AI is gonna here to stay. How to bring that trust between AI and the workforce in this case? Because sometimes people don't adopt AI just because, oh, it's gonna replace me someday. I'm giving it all the knowledge I am doing.
It's exactly the fear that's in people's heads. So let's break it down. Um, Definitely, jobs will go away because of AI. That's a 100% statement of fact. It's
It's
already
already
happening.
happening. Yeah.
Also, definitely, somebody will replace you in your job, whatever your job ends up being, if they know how to use AI and you don't. There will be jobs, there'll be some of the same jobs, but done differently. And there will be whole new jobs, and then some jobs will go away. If you go back to the internet era, like a massively huge percentage of all of the workers in the United States works for the postal service delivering messages. And of course, the internet made message delivery
Yeah.
via mail mostly obsolete.
Yeah.
That change didn't happen overnight. It took time, new industry, new jobs, new things emerged, and we're gonna see the same thing here. Now, 95%, if you look at the MIT study, 95% of current AI projects are failing to deliver the expected return.
That's right. That's right.
Now, that's a pretty extreme. I don't know whether to believe that or not. I don't care. It doesn't matter.
Mhm.
At some point, businesses will figure out where and how to make AI be a productivity tool for their company. And some of that will include replacing tasks, and in some cases, maybe even whole jobs with AI. But we're still going to need people. And I don't know how much you work with AI every day. I'm developing a product that is an AI coach and
Yep.
mentor. I'm developing a product that trains people how to use AI and how to go beyond AI. Um, and so, I know for a fact that AI has incredible blind spots, incredible weaknesses. And there's no court in the world that will let you blame the AI if something goes wrong
Yeah.
and it has an impact to your brand, your company, your customers, your employees. You can't blame the AI. So, at least for the foreseeable future, at least the next decade, we need humans.
We need.
We need humans building the AI, using it in a productive way, monitoring it, managing it, overseeing the quality. For most tasks and jobs, it's like having a pretty smart young intern that can do stuff really, really fast at any time of the day or night, but they don't know much. They have a lot of superficial knowledge. And if you know nothing about a topic and you ask AI, what you get back seems magical. It seems like it's, wow, it knows so much about this topic I know nothing about. But if you know something about that topic and you ask AI the same question, what you get back seems
Yeah.
very incomplete
Something.
and then also redundant and not very well organized. And you recognize that, okay, this is a good starting point, but I got a lot of work to do to make this
Yeah.
a usable output. So, part of what's happening in the workforce is that everybody is a manager with AI. They are managing a whole army of AI teammates. Some of them might be good, some of them might be bad. But we used to not need to learn management skills until later in our career. And some people never learned them. They were just an individual contributor. They didn't have to learn how to manage anybody
Yeah.
else. They didn't want to. Now, every person straight out of college is a manager. And so we have to teach management skills, not human management, but still some of the same
Technology buzzword.
skills. So, what are those critical skills? Well, to write a good AI prompt, AI is garbage in, garbage out. If I can't give it enough
What?
context, what I get back is meaningless.
Yeah.
And if I'm not smart enough to know it's meaningless, it didn't even do me any
Right.
I'm getting something back, I'm passing it along, it's garbage. I'm not even smart enough to know that. So, the first thing that we have to do is be able to write a good prompt. Well, a good prompt is 100% about context.
Yeah.
Now, context as a skill is, I believe, the single biggest differentiator between executives and everybody else. People who rise up in organizations tend to be the people who are naturally good or have learned to be good at assessing situational context, what is happening around me, adapting to it, and being able to share it with others. Executives are just naturally good at those skills. People lower in the org really struggle sometimes with
They
that.
take time to figure it out.
Right. The number one skill you need to write a good prompt is context.
Context.
So now this very sophisticated executive functioning that only a small percentage of people are really good at anyway becomes the top skill you need to make AI useful. So how do we teach context? Well, we can. Fortunately, we can.
Yep.
We have something called the context compass. So we teach you the 6 things to look at to discern context. But part of taking context from your environment involves listening. It's a skill to help you build context. Most people are not very good listeners. I'm actually not a great listener. We talk about the 5 levels of listening. The bottom level is closed listening. I'm fantastic at closed listening. You can talk, 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 talk. I can completely just tune you out.
Okay.
We can move up. Level 3 is ears only listening. I'm listening to what you say. Now, AI is fantastic at ears only listening. It can record every word that's said.
Yep.
80% of all communication is nonverbal.
Nonverbal.
It can't record that.
Yeah.
So if we go to the top, level 5, open listening is where I'm listening not just for what's said, but why that was said. What's the emotion? What's the motivator? What are the person's values and drivers? But I'm also listening for what's unsaid. And why is that being unsaid? And I'm able to do that not just for the one person in the room, but for the
Oh
dynamics
yeah.
of what's in the room. And even in an organization, the dynamics of who's not in the room. Why did this whole group not get invited? And how are they going? So that ability to take context, including your listening skills, the AI can record everything that was said, but it may not give you at all accurate context. Well, if I'm going to write a prompt, I have to be able to take that context, the business context, the situational context, and I have to be able to share it with the AI, or I'm not going to get a good output. So, this is like one tiny but critical example of the kinds of skills that we now have to invest in our humans very early in their career if we want them to be productive in working with AI.
And they figure out their adjustment into the change. I saw you made a statement AI fails because people are treated as passengers. Why do leaders still treat people as passengers in this case?
I think traditional playbooks for change are built around leaders going to an offsite, whether that's for a week or it takes some months, they hire McKinsey, whatever, but leaders go away and they figure out the new strategy. And then there's a threshold event. There's an all hands. There's a kickoff. There's an announcement to the company from the leaders about this new strategy.
Yeah.
Here's the
That's
change.
only we hear.
Yes, here it is. I have the answers. Everybody go forth. People still go through the same, they still plunge. What does this mean for me, etc. But what's different in today's environment and why that old playbook of announcing a change, kind of telling everybody, we're going left, here's what we're going to do now, we're going right, here's what we're going to do now, and then letting it trickle down. The reason why that doesn't work in today's environment is because for many, many companies, the leaders themselves don't yet know what the change needs to be. The leaders know that they have to incorporate AI into their products. They have to reinvent all of their functions. They have to find ways to
So there
reduce
is
costs.
alignment gap.
They're they don't know how. So they know what, hey, we need to figure out how to make AI work for us. We need to incorporate it into our products and into our delivery and into the way we operate. but the leaders don't know how, and the leaders themselves are, in many cases, not even working with AI day in and day out. So they don't understand its strengths and its blind spots. So we can't afford for our employees to be a passenger on this train. We need everybody in the company experimenting. The ideas for how to make AI work effectively for our company, for our department, in our products, it's going to come from the frontline people who are doing
Yep.
those jobs. And if they're afraid to experiment because they think they'll be replaced by AI, we won't get the answers, and we won't get the answers quickly. But if we can ground in psychological safety, part of the change model is what we teach is something called Kaufman's model of human potential. But it says that when humans are going through change, the first thing you have to do is stabilize the bottom of the boat. They use a sailboat metaphor. And you want to stabilize the ballast, psychological safety. And in this case with AI, it means I have enough confidence in my leadership that if I successfully innovate and I lean into this change, that at the end of the process, I'm still going to be a valued employee that has a job. My job might be different now, but I don't have to fear that I'm going to be replaced.
Yeah.
And if we can stabilize the boat, if we can give the psychological safety that it's okay to experiment, it's okay to experiment on things that don't work and share that, it's okay to try new things. And if I find ways to make myself more efficient by using the technology, I'm not going to be penalized for that. I'm going to be rewarded for it because I'm going to be able to go on to other work that can't be done as effectively by the machine. So we stabilize the boat. The second thing we have to do is put wind in the sail to move people forward. And the way to do that is when they're down in that valley of dramatic tension, is what we talked about earlier. Figure out what's in it for me, what's the growth opportunity, because it's leaning into growth and leaning into purpose that is the wind that moves people forward through change.
What is the scale that how progress is being measured on the human personality development on the leadership side? Talking from Zappa perspective, like you help employees develop their leadership skills, personality development, and various skills. What is the scale? How you measure like there is a progress going?
So there's lots of measurements that we need to be putting in place right now because the change is so multifaceted. So, of course, as leaders, we need to understand the business metrics. Where am I at today? What does success look like on the other side? If that is a productivity metric, a cost metric, a profitability metric, a speed metric, maybe all of the above, a revenue metric. So I need to be able to understand at a business level what's the change and then how do I measure that. But on the other end of that continuum, I also have to get down to each individual employee. And we do a variety of assessments, but we can help a company assess both people's understanding of the change and what they need to do and do differently to make it through, people's assessment of the organization's readiness for the change and how where they think the organization is at in the change process and where they see gaps so that leaders have information about how to fill in those gaps to help people through the change. And then also at the individual level, what are the skills that the individuals need to get through the change? How do we measure that before and after? And then how do we help them build those skills? And as we talked about before, at the individual level, some of the skills are true AI skills. We need to teach them what prompt engineering is, how to write a good prompt, how to apply AI for their jobs. We need to make them literate in the basic tools and how to use it in the flow of their work. That's a relatively small part of the change. If you look at the The study that McKinsey put out in 2025, 80% of successful transformations in AI are about the people learning to think and work differently. And only 20% is actually about the technology itself and the tool.
Yep.
And yet, Gartner showed we're spending 28 times the amount training the machines as we are training the humans. And in the Gartner study, they showed if we just spent 10 cents on the dollar investing in the human skills, we would unlock an additional 4.4 trillion in productivity and de-risk the high failure rates of the AI transformations that we're seeing. So, what are these skills that we need to invest in for the people? Part of it is the AI skills, but that's a small part. The rest of it is what we just talked about, teaching them to build context, teaching them to listen, teaching them to manage the AI effectively, to understand quality, and so forth. So, as marketers, our jobs, we can compress the time that it used to take to do things, which is great because I never met a marketing firm that had enough time or resource to get the job done. We can just actually start to handle the amount of work that needs to be done with the people that we have if those people are able to use AI really successfully.
So, do you think this AI mentoring and coaching model is enabling staff to align more with customer expectations?
A huge part of creating business value for any company and for any function is still the human's ability to ask the right question, which means they have to understand the situational context so they can lean in and be curious and ask the right question, because it's questions that unlock value.
How a marketing strategy should be measured, how to link it to the end results upfront while we are creating that strategy, and then how to measure milestones in between that it is being succeeded.
Can we figure out as a company the one thing that we're better at than anybody in the world? And can we anchor our strategy and our positioning there? And if we can do that, we have the foundation for success. But it really does begin with, where do we think we can be the world's best? And anytime I work from a marketing, I want to go back to that fundamental underlying truth. Because the worst marketing to me is marketing that's untrue.
Let us discuss your best decisions that you have made. You're proud of the marketing strategy that you created, executed, brought results in, and the company transformed. If you can share your experience and tell us like how a marketing strategy should be measured, how to link it to the end results upfront while we are creating that strategy, and then how to measure milestones in between that it is being succeeded, and this is good.
I think the things I would point to as having pride in being part of are the things that were hard to do. And it's like one of these change journeys. You don't know what's going to happen at the end,
Yep.
but you always feel like you're on the knife's edge. Often that is around category creation, because if you're an existing brand in an existing category and you're already the leader, there's not a lot to do. There's marketing,
Yeah.
but it's not challenging. When you're not the leader, when you're the number two or you're the first in a category, there's a lot to be figured out. And I think, the things I'm most proud of in my career are where we tackled a really hard challenge and something positive came out of it for the company, for the team, etc. Now, with that said, and I know that's generalities, one thing that I have come to believe is that markets come and go, products come and go, companies come and go. And so my takeaway kind of about halfway through my career when I started to see this pattern continually happening is that the only real impact and legacy we have that is lasting as leaders is the impact we have on people. So all of the new products, all of the marketing strategies, I'm proud of them, but I'm way more proud of the fact that people have worked with me at 5 different companies, that people have grown from their first job and career to becoming a CMO or a leader or a CEO, because it's the impact we have on people that is the true lasting legacy, because the products kinda come and
Yeah,
go, companies get bought and sold,
well
etcetera.
said.
In terms of the red thread for category creation, and I think so many companies right now are going through existential threat. So many companies right now are having to completely rethink their business strategy or their product strategy. They're trying to reposition. And again, it's often because of AI, it's being done to them, but they're having to make an adjustment, a radical adaptation, maybe. And so where I always ground is, can we figure out as a company the one thing that we're better at than anybody in the world? And can we anchor our strategy and our positioning there? And if we can do that, we have the foundation for success. Now, that one thing needs to be something that people want. There's urgency around it. We need to be able to execute well on it, kind of back to Jim Collins and the hedgehog principles. But it really does begin with, where do we think we can be the world's best? And anytime I work from a marketing or any leadership lens, I want to go back to that fundamental underlying truth, because the worst marketing to me is marketing that's untrue. And marketing itself gets, I won't say it gets a bad rap. The definition for many people, they'll say, well, that was just their marketing. And it's like an implication that when companies market, they are saying things that are not true. To me, that is the worst marketing.
Yeah.
Marketing should always be fundamentally grounded in the truth. Now, you can make a flaw into a feature. So part of your telling the truth is trying to put the very best lens that you have on the products that you offer. But we always anchor in the truth. And ideally, we anchor in the things that we're better at than everybody else. And we find the market for them. And with new companies, my little new company, Xapa, my previous company, Scalar, even when I've been at big companies at Microsoft, the work to be done is on product market fit. How do we find something where we believe we can deliver value and then match it with a market who sees the value in that and is willing to pay for it?
How can this AI, because but you're talking from, I believe, B2B perspective, those are big markets, and we touched upon AI a lot on human development and a lot of engineering aspects. How can AI help in B2B marketing, and where can it scale and where it can go risky?
That is a podcast all on its own. The and by the way, I'm not really in the midst of all of that anymore because I'm not a day-to-day marketing practitioner.
Mhm.
However, back to this concept of old playbooks and new playbooks, we spent the first, half hour talking about how the old playbooks for
Yeah.
change management and leadership just don't work anymore. And we need completely new playbooks that activate from the ground up. The same is true in marketing. The old marketing playbooks mostly don't work anymore. And we have to start reinventing whole new playbooks. Now, it's easy to say things like we have to go from SEO, SEM, the traditional search, into more agentic focused. What's the double click on that? We have to have more content. We have to have content that answers questions that agents are asking that and humans are asking. So it also is its own change management process. It's really what we talked about earlier, the reinvention of the marketing function. And marketing is being reinvented top to bottom. The nice part about AI is it accelerates things that used to take a really long time. So if I want to do competitive research, create a battle card, um, analyze market trends, AI can be a huge help in
Yeah,
doing that.
those are good.
Fantastic. And anything that's repeatable can be, I can build an agent to do it for me, and I can ask my agent to give me that repeatable task, constantly going out and looking for what the competitors are doing and updating the battle cards. So, as marketers, our jobs, we can compress the time that it used to take to do things, which is great because I'd never met a marketing firm that had enough time or resource to get the job done. So, forget laying people
That's a truth.
off. We can just actually start to handle the amount of work that needs to be done with the people that we have if those people are able to use AI really successfully. So leaning in, learning to use the tools, and reinventing two things. It's the same work, but we can do it in new ways faster because of AI. Just remember the human has to oversee because the AI can make a lot of mistakes of both omission and hallucination. And then in some cases, reinventing the work itself because the old job is not the job anymore. There's a new job. And we still have to figure out what are those new jobs so that we can successfully market companies when the old tools for building pipeline
Yeah.
are not in place anymore.
Yeah, marketing has changed from being salesy to more educational.
A lot of it is about great content,
Yeah, because
educational content.
customers are more educated than ever. Their sentiments have changed. They don't want to be sold.
Right. A lot of self-service.
It has to be so personalized
Right.
into individual level, even in B2B case also. I mean, I live it every day, every night. So I mean, it's changing big time.
One of my boards is a company called Contentful, and they're a fantastic CMS. They help marketers bring all of this content in. But what's happening because of AI with Contentful is it's not just about being able to have that content for different channels anymore.
Mhm.
It's really being able to personalize it
और कैसे ना
down
reach
to
to
an
cross all
individual,
channels.
yeah, and
Yeah.
a company basis. And
Yeah.
so, something like a company like Contentful is a great example of how the strategy is changing because of AI. The products are changing because of AI.
Yeah.
The marketing function that Contentful does for itself, it's all about dog fooding its own products and educating the marketers. And its customer is changing because it sells to marketers. So, there's a great example of how AI can create either an existential threat or a phenomenal opportunity for every single person in that company.
So do you think this AI mentoring and coaching model is enabling staff to align more with customer expectations? Because any role has some sort of customer experience influence,
Yeah.
even if it is
Yeah.
not customer facing.
Yeah, it's a great question. I'm sure that differs for every single function and for every single company. And I'll tie it back to what we talked about in terms of context. AI itself does nothing. It only does what you ask it to do, what you design it to do, and the first step in that
To
is
only
the
amplify.
human brain to take context
Yeah.
and understand how, are our customers frustrated with some part of our experience today? Are our products incomplete for our customers in some way? And if so, how can we fill that gap, whether it's through AI or something else? But how do we fill that gap? A huge part of creating business value for any company and for any function is still the human's ability to ask the right question, which means they have to understand the situational context so they can lean in and be curious and ask the right question because it's the questions that unlock value. Information itself is democratized.
Yep.
Um, Even knowledge, tasks, and expertise is starting to be democratized. But that unique human ability to understand context, to be curious, to think about and identify gaps and problems that the AI still can't do.
You're so human focused, people first, and so like emotionally attached on the employee side. Have you ever fired anybody?
Oh, many, many times. Yes, 100%. And I've done layoffs. I've done mass layoffs more times than I would like. I'm not opposed to firing people. I look at it a little bit differently. Have I actually fired somebody? I've let many people go because the fit wasn't right. But one of the things we teach in Zappa is that the way we handle somebody's last day, our own or an employee's, is the most important experience that
Absolutely.
that person has.
That's different.
Yes, and I'm a big believer in handling departures, whether they're layoffs of groups or individual actions, in a way that protects human dignity. Even if somebody has a history of not performing. In my own personal experience, I don't think it's ever been because the person didn't want to.
Y-
People are generally good. They want to be successful. They don't always have the skills, the know-how, the motivation
Yeah.
to do the job you need them to do in the way you need them to do it. I always take that back to fit. And I have a few rules. We teach them in Zappa. It should never be a surprise. People should always have an opportunity to understand the gap and fix the gap before you close the gap in a different way. But at the end of the day, we're on the same side. I want you to be successful and you want you to be successful. And if you can't be successful in this job, let's find a job here or somewhere else where you can be successful that really matches with your areas of expertise, passion, core interest, motivation, superpowers. It's not about you being an inadequate person. It's about you not having the right skills for the job that needs to be done now. And if we take that lens, it depersonalizes. It's still impacting you. And I'm not going to pretend that it's not. When you have to let somebody go from a job, I have a very clear understanding that this is impacting their life, their self-confidence, their family. They have to go home and tell their spouse or their kids. This is a big, their parents. This is a big thing.
Yeah.
I do not take that responsibility lightly. And I always take it through the lens of, if we're at this point, this is also good for you because the fit is not right. And ultimately, you're going to be happier and more successful in a job where you can be successful. Anytime I can, I help that person land. Usually, I have a pretty good sense of not only what they're not good at because the fit's not right, but also what they probably are good at. And if I can help use my network to get them into a job where I think they would be really good, I am happy to help them. I also always check in after the fact. I'm there for them after, even if I can't help them at a professional level, I can help them at a personal level. I can care about them. I can recognize the tension and stress that this is causing, and I can be a personal support.
This is sweet. Most layoffs happen just by email and done.
I would never do that. At my last company, I was running a startup during COVID, and COVID hit our customer base very hard. A third of our customers were travel companies in Asia,
Hmm.
and our business was massively impacted. And when the NBA stopped the season in February, I was telling everybody, ignore COVID, get your butts in the office. We're going to work through this. And when the NBA shut the season down, I was like, okay, this is going to be impactful. I've got to deal with it. We had a massive launch that was happening in April. So at the end of February, I told my leadership team, we have to do a layoff. And they were freaked out. One, we
Yeah.
couldn't afford to lay people off because we were in the middle of a massive
Yeah.
launch. And two, the minute you start laying people off, it impacts the motivation of
Yeah.
everybody who's staying.
Yeah.
But we were a startup and we didn't have the financial runway. We only had a year's worth of money, and we were burning through it too quickly. So very quickly what we did is One, we got the leadership team aligned, and that was hard because people weren't initially aligned.
Yeah.
The board let us move very quickly, but we ran a transparent playbook. We brought all the employees together. We showed them the numbers of how we were burning through cash. We showed them the percentage of people we had to lay off so that we had runway. We told people that we still had to do the launch. So anybody who was going to stay, we had a conversation with the day before this conversation, and we told them how valuable they were, and we gave them additional stock. We didn't say what was happening, but we said, "You're so valuable. It's a
Yeah.
really uncertain time. COVID's having a big impact on us. You're critical. We want you to stay. Here's additional stock." For the people that were impacted, the next day they had a one-on-one with me or their manager. They were told that in 6 weeks they were going to be laid off because we needed to get through the launch. We told them that if they wanted to leave now, they'd still get paid for all 6 weeks, and at the end of the 6 weeks, they were gonna get a severance. But we needed to know because their teammates were good, so if they could stay and focus on the job of getting the launch done, we needed them to stay because their teammates were depending on them.
Yeah.
But if they didn't think they could focus, they could just walk away with all the same money. Every person stayed. We brought everybody together, even the people laid off. We laid out the math. Each person that was laid off not only got a severance, but they got extended COBRA, even though we were a startup, and we gave them a full year to exercise their stock options instead of the normal 90 days. And we said, we don't know if the company can survive through this change.
Yeah.
But if it does, we want you to be able to participate in the upside. So we'll give you an entire year to exercise, and within a year, we'll know. Every person stayed. They got us through the launch. Every person but one came to me and said it was the right decision, and I was the right person in my group to be laid off. Almost every person came to me personally and said, I've been laid off many times, but this is the best layoff experience I've ever had. And I was proud of that because we had to do it. We didn't have a
Haven't
choice.
heard this story anywhere else.
Yes. And of those employees that were laid off, and there were 15 in total, and thanks to Silicon Valley Bank, it would have been 20, but Silicon Valley Bank immediately and proactively gave extended term credits to all of its startups. So we were able to lay off 5 less people entirely because of the graciousness of Silicon Valley Bank. And I'll always be loyal to them because of that. So we laid off 15 people. Of those 15 people, 3 of them and we helped it. So the call to action is, 1, we have to do the launch, but 2, as soon as our employees leave, the ones that are impacted, call to action to every employee to help them land. These are all great people.
Yeah.
So we're going to put our networks to work for them.
Yeah.
I checked in on every employee every week. I put my network to work. So did other people. Everybody landed. One person went back to school and one person made a choice not to. Everybody else landed. And 3 of the people turned around and gave us contracts at their new company.
Wow.
It was
Wonderful.
it was a tough situation, but the way as a leader you handle letting people go, that is what defines your leadership.
And you saw the results also, the power of connections.
And by the way, that company had a very successful it was hard. It took us through August, September before we were able to turn the company around, but it was because of that launch and a whole new product. And it ended up ending the year with some massive opportunities, and we ended up getting bought for a very nice outcome for our employees. And every single employee that went through that layoff participated in the upside of that sale.
Beautiful story.
Yeah, it's a great story.
So how's 2026 to be addressed? Any suggestion to leaders, to staff, everybody?
I think the most important thing that we can do for ourselves and others is build resilience. And resilience is a skill, like anything else. We teach it in Xapa. It's about grounding in we know we can do as individuals and having the courage to face the unknown, to imagine a better future and to step into that unknown future and figure it out. And as leaders, if we can do that together with our people, you said it very early, allow them to shape the path to get involved.
Yeah.
But for each one of us, we don't know what the future holds. And it doesn't matter if you're at an AI company and you're on fire or you're at a company that's being completely disrupted by AI. We don't know what the future holds. And it's that ability to be resilient and hopeful in the face of the unknown that is the skill we have to build for people. They're adaptability skills.
Thank you, Christine. Great insights, wonderful conversation. Probably the most human focused conversation I have had. Thank
Yep. 80% of all AI transformation comes from the humans,
you,
not the
humans.
technology. So
That's
thank you
true.
for having me.
Thank you. And that's a wrap on this episode. As I look back over our journey so far, I'm struck by something far more significant than our metrics. I'm struck by the caliber of the conversations we have built together. To you, our viewers, thank you. Your time is the most valuable asset you own, and the fact that you choose to spend it here. I do not take it lightly, and I do everything possible in my control to create the value content for you. At this show, we are not interested in winning the race for volume. We are committed to quality over quantity. Our goal is not to fill your feed, but to fuel your perspective. We are building a platform focused on big picture insights that actually move the needle in your life and your career. We are still in our early chapters, and I'm grateful to have you with us as we build something designed to last. Thank you for your trust and your continued support. If you value this perspective and our agenda, I invite you to subscribe and join us in building this mission. Thank you.